G'day everyone, welcome to yet another edition of the F1 Armchair Experts Podcast. My name is Durko, your host, and as always I'm joined by my co-host on the little island we call Ireland, all the way over the other side of the world, Big T. This is the Azerbaijan Grand Prix round for the podcast. Big T, you know what to do, smash the buttons on that desk and play the music.
Okay, man. So, what's the first thing we're going to talk about? What did you think of the race? What do you think of the race? Let's before we get into the nitty gritty of it, like just as a fan watching Baku, sitting back, we were both. It's kind of late night for you. It's midday here on Sunday for me. What did you think? What was just your general thought of that race?
Yeah, look, I thought it was a typical Baku race, a typical Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Look, it was a war of attrition for the Ferrari cars in terms of at least the Ferrari power units. It wasn't the most exciting race in terms of challenging overtakes, flat-out driving. Wow, look what he did. I wasn't exactly on the edge of my seat. But it was just more interesting to see, as I said, a war of attrition for the Ferrari power units with both Ferraris going out. Obviously, Junior went out with a hydraulic issue. Chuck went out with a completely blown engine. I think K-Mag potentially cooked his. And then God knows what happened to Guan Yu Zhou. He just got told, mate, we're going to bin the car, and he parked it up in the Alfa Romeo garage. But it was interesting to see. I was pleased at least Stroll didn't finish the race, only because I can't stand the bloke. But for the Ferrari power units, I think it was just a real test of have they dialed them up. If they turn the dial on the Marshall amp to 11 just to get the most power out of them and just see what they can break them at this far into the season, because we've still got a few races to go, and I'll just be interested to see what they can come back with and say, okay, right, we've hit the Plimsoll line. We know where we're going to sink. We know how much water we can put in the bucket with these engines to absolutely bust them and see what happens. So maybe they've done it. Maybe it's a strategic thing for the Ferrari engines to say, right, we've gone this far. We've got to get through the rest of the season with limited resource in terms of MGU Ks, MGU Hs, engines, exhaust, power units, turbo kits, whatever you've got. We've just got to balance out the rest of the season. We've gone hard and fast and it paid off, but has it really paid off? What's your thoughts, T?
In terms of the race, I would not have said it was a typical Baku race. I think in the past we've had a lot of, safety cars, unpredictable finishes, some kind of, last lap incidents. We all know what happened to Verstappen last year. I think his race engineer even alluded to it there in this race, that, keep his head down, because even in the last couple of laps things could change. I wouldn't say it was the typical Baku race. I think it was very safe. It was a bit paradey, to be honest. I was kind of more focused. I was really focused on Ricciardo this race to see where he would land in qualifying, how he'd do in the race. It was okay. It was I was kind of more about how does this race tie in with previous races. Well, again, Sainz finishes up his race within the first within the first stint, through no fault of his own this time. But out of the 6 races that he's raced, he's only finished 3. So, it's 3 DNFs that he's had so far. We've seen Ferrari again explode, not just in the main Ferrari works team, but in Alfa Romeo and Haas as well. So they've clearly got a technical issue there. There's a lot of similars. Latifi, Williams having trouble even before they got to start the race because of under investigation for rolling the car back after the 15-second formation lap warning.
Yeah.
And then again, I think he was investigated again during the third stint of the race for ignoring blue flags. So, yeah, I have a lot of questions. You know, what is going on at Williams? You know, what do Ferrari have to do? One thing that's very clear and obvious to me, though, is that Red Bull have clearly got it all together. They've got the full package now. Mercedes seem to be waiting in the shadows, despite the amount of porpoising that car has. They're still able to achieve results, albeit, you know, Russell was gifted P3 today because of the two Ferraris retiring, but still, they're just waiting in the wings now for if they can get on top of that porpoising before Silverstone. What's the next race? Canada, isn't it? Yeah, Canada, and then Silverstone.
Yeah, Canada.
I think. Yeah, the race today, I was a bit disappointed in it. I was expecting more safety cars. I was expecting somebody to bin it somewhere. It was a relatively safe race. Yeah, that's I really don't know what words to put to it, to be honest. Kind of on the fence about it.
Yeah, I don't know if you watched the F2 race before it, but
I didn't know.
That was a real race of attrition. That it was just it's sort of the race at Baku you expect. There was guys going off at the chicane through the castle, and it was more just a typical race at least for the F2 drivers. The thing I note about the F1 race, going back to it at least, is when the race did finish. I'm not sure if you saw it too, but Lewis Hamilton trying to get out of that car, and he was almost looked like he was in crippling pain, just sitting on the halo, just trying to get out of the car. And his mechanics were there, literally, hands about to grab him if he fell out, because due to park firmate till he's weighed in, they can't touch him or touch the car. But he literally, Lewis was at the point he was flat out getting out of the car due to obviously the back strain and the back pressure, everything that's going on with that porpoising. And, Sky Sports at least said that, some of the up and down motion is being registered at 6 Gs. But it was funny after the race, obviously there was a quote on Autosport where Toto said, Lewis, great race day considering, you're driving a shitbox car and we're trying to sort it out for you. But really, when does it come to an end? Why is it the other cars like the Red Bull, the Ferraris, McLarens, I mean, they say they got porpoising, but nothing to what the Merc's got. And I still think it come down to if they gone over aggressive with their aero package, with the zero side pod, is it just not working for them?
I mean, he said wasn't there a comment on the radio near the end that he had said that the seat had gone cold, and I don't think that was down to liquids or air. I think that was down to the nerve endings in the bottom of his back and his backside and the top of his legs, just to the point that he's just gone numb. That maybe a blood flow issue, something like that. That's generally when you enter a state of shock, or the body enters a state of shock, you feel that cold feeling. Or if you've got a circulation issue, again, that cold feeling. So I think I said before the race in the group, in the race thread, that this was going to be a physical one. I suspected Mercedes were going to be the worst out of it, given the amount of porpoising that they had. I think the other teams pretty much managed it. You don't really see that level of porpoising from any other team. Mercedes have it real bad. I think what it comes back to, man, is really, to be honest, is the direction that they've taken with their aero. Yeah, exactly. It's their floor. It's their side pod setup. I mean, what do they do? Do they now abandon that, go back to their original, and then... Or do they do what Aston Martin have been doing and trying to, you could argue, copy the Red Bull? Or Like, what do you do? There's got to be something in there. There's got to be a fix coming. There has to be a fix coming. I mean, that's dangerous. That's a health, like I said in the WhatsApp to you earlier before the race. Like, this is going to be a health and safety issue at this stage. I mean, if Hamilton is now physically broken from that race, I suppose on one side you could argue, well, you know, they're the best drivers in the world. This is the top sport. You know, the drivers back in the 60s and the 70s, the 50s even had to put up with a lot worse. These guys should man up and not be so soft. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to get to a point where, I think George Russell had alluded to it as well, and I'd been thinking of it there for the last couple of the races. At some point, there might be an accident. At some point, with this porpoising, this attaching and detaching of aero, someone could end up in a real serious accident, you know. You've seen how cars can flip and lift if the right amount of air gets underneath of them. If that floor keeps banging the ground, I know we've got the plank, but if that floor keeps banging the ground to the point where the floor breaks, the aero completely detaches, they go to make a turn, there's absolutely no downforce, and then they end up in the air, flipping over into a corner. Who knows, you know? But I wouldn't like to see that.
So when do the FIA step in and say, look,
When?
In the interests of occupational health and safety, to your driver, to the risk of the other drivers you're competing against, you're running against, to the risk of the car, you know, flipping off the circuit or crashing in the pit lane or whatever. When do the FIA start to look at the Merc and say this car is undrivable?
I think it should be now. I think Baku now is the perfect example. Most teams have got it under control. The Mercedes haven't, and then you have a driver struggling to get out of the car after the race. This is the warning shot. This is the red light that's going off, warning the FIA that they need to do something, or even Mercedes need to do something. They need to work a bit quicker. Obviously, they're restricted with their the budget cap and, you know, the CFD, the wind tunnel things that they can do, limited time and all that. But they have to do something now, because you could wait another race and it might be too late. Like I said, if somebody gets hurt from this, there'll be questions asked, well, why didn't we do something sooner? Why didn't we review it after Baku and give them something else? But I think they need a bit more time. I'm sure they have the resources to fix it, but it needs to happen quicker.
I mean, you look back to when, you know, the Michelin-shod cars turned up to the Indianapolis race, and they pulled most of the grid out. There was 6 cars left that had, you know, Bridgestone tyres left on it, because Michelin said, look, sorry, our tyre's not safe for this circuit. You know, there's a risk, because Ralf Schumacher had a big prang. He bent it into the wall. When do Mercedes, if not the FIA, say, look, sorry, we've got to go away and potentially pull out of the next few races to fix
Can't see that happening. Yeah, I can't see that happening. That's a bit of a tricky one, and I think that might be a bit of an unfair comparison as well. I mean, you had more teams running those tyres in Indy that time,
yeah, true,
where the threat was a lot higher. The threat of someone getting hurt, or the potential for someone getting hurt, is a lot higher. I think this thing with the porpoising is not it's not as severe as the Michelin thing in Indy, but and you don't have as many teams suffering from it as well. If you look up and down the grid, you see elements of it, but Mercedes have it. Mercedes have it bad. I mean, it's just crap. Anyway, look. Can we move on to something else? Because talking about Mercedes drives me bananas sometimes. But I think linked to Mercedes, we should probably talk about Williams. I put a post up in the group, I think yesterday, that got a fair amount of reaction. It was a simple post. It was just a question: was Claire Williams really the reason? Was she, everybody was looking for her head, myself included. I think I joined that train, and I will openly admit that I thought that she was to blame for a lot of what was going on with Williams back over the years. She finally stepped down. They sold the team. Darlton Capital took over. Just Capito stepped in as team principal. Latifi brought some money to the team. They got Albon in there, got him released from his Red Bull contract, and here we are. We've come no further at all. There was glimmers of hope earlier in the season, but I think now that other teams have kind of got it together, you can kind of see the pecking order there now. And Williams, I'm so disappointed again in Williams. Like, what the hell needs to happen in that team? What's your thoughts?
Look, I don't think it comes down to Claire Williams as the deputy team principal as she was when Frank sort of stepped away from the front line as such. I think it's like any team. You can look back and you look at what Giancarlo Minardi set up, and Ken Tyrrell had set up, and there's always going to be a back market team. But to blame Claire, I think, is probably too harsh. I mean, she grew up with that family, and her two brothers did, and it was the family business was Williams Engineering.
Saying that, would you bring them back? Would you bring her back?
Probably not.
Why?
I wouldn't bring her back, but I would not blame Claire for what is now in position, because I mean she's been gone for too long for her now to be blamed for where the team's position is. I think Jos Capito's made a difference. I mean, we've seen that with maybe people can say, look, it's just sheer good luck that Albon's bagged a couple of points, but I think at the end of the day, Latifi's got to go. But as I said to somebody in a conversation tonight about Latifi, they said before Latifi, or I said to this person, what do you think about Lance Stroll, getting punted? And he said, you've got to get rid of Mick Schumacher and Latifi before you get rid of Lance Stroll. And I totally agree. They're the three drivers that have got to be sidelined. If any F1 team is going to progress, be it Haas, be it Aston Martin or Williams, you've got to sideline those three blokes. And as Lee Thatcher discussed tonight, during the race, he sent a message and said, there's a rumour that Oscar Piastri could go to Williams and replace Latifi. Mm-hmm. Look, what's going to hurt? Sidelining for 3 races. I mean, they've sidelined drivers before. It's not a new notion. It's not a new idea. It's been done. Let's do it again.
It's going to cost money, though. That's the thing. Latifi's in a pretty watertight contract, I would say, unless there's a performance clause in there, or unless there's got to be some kind of clause in these race driver contracts where if the negative image or the negative energy from social media in any way shapes the projection of Williams in a negative way, there's got to be a reason. There's got to be a clause there to allow Williams to release him from his contract. Any of the Williams posts, I don't know, for anyone listening to this podcast, right, just pull up your phone, right, pull over if you're driving, pull up your phone, go onto Facebook and look for the Williams racing page, right, and look at any of the posts that Williams have put up, right, and they're doing their own social media within reason. On Twitter, Instagram, it's the same everywhere. And they're putting up, the results after free practice, the results after qualifying, the results after the race. And the amount of abuse that Latifi gets in on Williams' own page. The team have to be reading that. They have to be. It's just literally as you're scrolling, it's just constantly Latifi has to go. Why is he still here? Again, time and time again, Albon. Look, Albon has beaten him. I mean, Latifi crashed on the formation lap on the way to the grid in Monaco. I mean, Jesus Christ! Yeah, you could say money. You could argue, well, he brings a lot of money to the team. I suppose he has finished races. He hasn't really contributed anything. But I agree, he has to go. I would struggle to blame Jos Capito because we all know what he's capable of with his rallying background. He might have to be given a bit more time, but that time should be given over to sitting down, drawing up a plan, rethinking the plan, sitting down with Doralton Capital and saying, right, okay, look, this isn't working. We need to move some people around. Maybe that's what they've done. They've tried to work within the budget. They've gone for cheaper staff. I believe some staff left as well when Williams left. When they sold the Williams team, a lot of the good staff left. It's a kind of a thing that we didn't really hear about, but there was a bit of an exodus of loyal staff that had left, and you can clearly see it that there's the inexperience there. There's that rookie feeling about the team, like they're starting over again from scratch. Okay, it's got the Williams name down the side of the car, and it's got it on the on the race, on the name that they enter into the races with, but it isn't Williams. It isn't Williams anymore. We have to start treating Williams like Haas, a kind of a brand new team, team principal, pretty much new drivers, new cars, rookie employees. It's gonna take, like you said, they're always going to be a back market team. I can't see Williams moving forward. I saddens me to say that, but just can't see them getting out of this anytime soon. Even with Piastri in the seat, I don't think it's going to make a difference.
I mean, you got to look at what Guy Ligier started off with his team, and that was bought out by Alan Prost, and Pedro Diniz, he bought a gazillion dollars for his family's Parmalat business, and put Parmalat name all over the blue cars, but Diniz, he was within himself another shit driver. He just brought a ton of money to the team to say, look, I'm buying a seat. Much as what Nick Latifi's doing, which is sad. But in talking about the cost of drivers getting a seat in a car, there's been discussion this week, especially Vettel, talking about the salary, or not the salary caps. When I talk about, talking about the budget cap for teams.
Tell me, I actually missed it. I actually missed this. So just fill everybody in on what the news, or what it is they're trying to push. Because I'll be honest, I've been busy this week. I haven't caught up with all the news. So what's this salary cap about?
Well, there's discussion around a salary cap for drivers, because they say there's a budget cap for the teams. There should be a salary cap for the drivers. And
what's the cap?
Should those two budgets? I'm not 100% sure what the amount is, but the discussion comes back to, should there be a salary cap on the amount drivers are paid? And I believe there should be. I mean, I've been saying it for years. I think the drivers are. I mean, I'm going to probably get ridiculed here for saying this, but I think the drivers are potentially overpaid for what they do. Yeah, sure. I mean, the top 20 drivers in the world. But when does it become stupid to pay a bloke $50 million a year to drive in 20-odd races?
Okay, I'm going to put my analytical hat on, right? I'm going to put my analytical hat on, right, for a second. When you say
put your business cap on, Tony. I want to hear this.
When you say that, I said, look, it's drilling down into what you're saying. When you say the drivers are overpaid, what's Latifi getting paid?
It might be per year through Williams. Probably he might be on $750,000 of Williams, but he's $750,000. But his old man.
So less than $1 million. So less than $1 million.
Less than $1 million US. But his old man's probably throwing $10 million a year into the team.
What would Vettel or Stroll be on in Aston Martin?
Stroll would be on $2 or $3 million a year.
Vettel.
But then, his old man owns the team, so it's completely different. Whereas Vettel could be, I don't know, he could be on something stupid like $25 million a year, like $1 million a race.
What's Alonso on? What do you think?
Off the top of my head, I'd say 30 to 35.
Hamilton?
He'd be on 50 odd. Plus personal endorsements. I mean,
and Russell?
Really, he'd have to be on 20 odd at least.
So, my question then is, what kind of a cap do you put in place? You put in a 30 million cap, okay? That just reins in Alonso
Yep.
and Hamilton a little bit. It makes no difference to the rest of the grid. So what's the point, or is it going to be somehow scaled? Do you put a cap in on the lower end drivers? If if it's their rookie year, there's a maximum of 500,000 per year. If it's their second year, does that move up? Is it a scaled model over a period of time? The longer they're in Formula One, the it goes up every year. How the hell do you implement a cap like that on? If you take Formula One out of it, you consider any business which has employees. You've got senior managers, junior managers, first line assistant, supervisors, the ground staff, possibly a CEO, a managing director. How the hell do you how the hell do you manage that and put a cap in that covers everybody? I would argue that a lot of the team principals would be on as much, if not more, than some of the drivers.
But do they really? I mean, at the end of the day, people are going to say, "Yeah, look, they're worth the money because, they're driving the fastest cars in the world, flat out. They're putting their life on the edge, their life at the risk." But really, why don't you cap it at, hypothetically, 20 races, 5 million a year, cap it. If you can't live off $5 million a year, you don't pay to go anywhere, you don't pay for a single meal, you don't pay for any clothing, you don't pay for shit. Cap it at 5 million. Like tonight, Verstappen's won the race. Sure, okay, Red Bull agree there's a bonus there of 250 grand US for a win. You get a second place podium, you might get 175. You get third place, you get 100,000 as a bonus. Do a performance incentive bonus rather than say, right, Max, you're on $60 million for the year, and we'll work it out at the end of the season what your bonus is. I think it just becomes, it just outprices everything. I mean, you've got to look at the mechanics. I mean, the mechanics are on absolute pittance compared to what the drivers are. And they're the guys that are doing all the work. Where is it fair coming back down the line to the guys on the floor for what they're doing? I mean, sure, I'd love to go and do it, and I'd probably do it for free if I had half a chance. But any driver that's getting, 50, 60 million bucks a season, it's just insane. I mean, Alonso came out and said, you got to think about, a bloke like myself, I've got to live off 20, 30 million bucks a year. Well, what are you spending it on? It's just, I think there has to be a salary cap.
Is Vettel arguing that the cap shouldn't come into place, or is he saying that it should? Where is Vettel on what was he vocal about?
Vettel's against the cap. He says just pay us what we're worth. Sure, have a cap on the budgets for the teams, but for me as a driver, you pay me what I'm worth. Otherwise, I'll just walk away.
So the likes of Vettel, Alonso, Hamilton, all those that are probably up skirting around the 30 to 50 million mark per year are the ones that are going to be most vocal about it, because they're the ones that would stand to lose the most. A driver like, again, it comes back to what I said earlier, a driver that's at the back of the grid, someone like Latifi or Mick Schumacher or Kevin Magnussen, who might not be on around the million mark or $1.5 million, 2 million. They make it work. They've got nice lives, nice houses. They drive nice cars. They're comfortable. They make it work. The opulent end of it with your private jets and your Pagani Zondas and your fashion brands and all that kind of thing. All the cap is going to do, really, if they do implement a cap on salaries, is just going to squeeze the likes of Vettel, Alonso, Hamilton, potentially Bottas out of the sport. And that's Formula One's way of forcing their
Forcing their hand.
yeah, they're forcing their hand to make this budget cap work. You can see a lot of teams. It was something that I wanted to talk about. Was this whole budget cap versus inflation? What's inflation in Australia at the moment? Like, what's the percentage inflation?
Off the top of my head, about 3.5%.
So you're not really experiencing what the rest of us are experiencing. We've got inflation in Ireland at the moment of between 7 and 9%. They're saying it's going to be as high as 13% by the end of the summer. The UK are already starting to fall into recession. They're talking about America going into something called stagflation. And if that takes hold, then potentially Europe could fall into that as well, where you have rising unemployment and inflation. And and upping the interest rates is not going to fix anything. So you're this stagnated situation where you've no growth in the economy, you've no rise in GDP. And if you look at a country like the UK, which houses a lot of Formula One teams, this is killing them at the moment. Like everything that Christian Horner came out there a few weeks ago, and he was bleating about that they were going to have to let staff go, and it's real. It is real. There is no way that these teams are going to operate within this budget cap. Never before we even start talking about the salary cap for the drivers, they've got to get their team costs under control. The price of air travel, the price of hotels. I can't get a hotel in Dublin. A friend of mine was leaving work. We were parting ways. We were having a bit of a going out for him, in Dublin. I was supposed to go. I couldn't get a hotel in Dublin for one night for anything less than 260, 270 euro, which is just fucking madness. I could have flown to Italy and spent 3 days in Italy and flown back for less than what it would have cost me to spend one night in Dublin. And it's the same all across the UK as well. Inflation has gone absolutely mental. And I think, the FIA turning around now and wanting to implement, or is it Liberty Media that want to implement the salary cap? I can see it having to happen. It's going. Somebody somewhere has to take a pay cut. This can't work. I know that the salaries weren't included in the budget cap, but the budget cap itself, this 135 million, is a bigger problem before we even get talking about salaries. Really, to be honest.
Well, I just googled it. The Australian inflation rate is at 5%, but fuel has gone up 11%.
Yeah, it's high. And it's going to continue.
And I can see why the teams are concerned about their budget cap, because Andreas Seidel has come out and said Mclaren are going to start to struggle with their budget cap because of the cost of. Because when they set the budget cap, the inflation rate was so much lower, and now it's absolutely spiked.
There was no war in Ukraine. There was no the recovery after the pandemic, the global pandemic seemed to be okay. Everybody was kind of getting back to normal. Air travel was starting to pick up again. But even the price of food, we have not seen. I don't think anyone in the world really has seen yet the price of fuel. Mark my words when I tell you this, and you would know because you work in with the farming community through your police work, right? But I'm telling you this now, right? The cost of feeding animals in the last 2 months has doubled. And when those animals end up in the slaughterhouses come September, October of this year, the price of meat will double. The price of grain will double. Your grocery bill at the end of the week is going to go up 60%. And I'm not joking. We haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen the real effect of this. So when this really kicks in, the Formula One teams they've got a decision to make. I'll ask you a question. Put yourself in the shoes of Andreas Seidel. You're running McLaren. You're the team principal. Okay, you've got your manager's hat on.
Yay.
You've got a budget. You've got a budget. You've got a budget that you need to stick to. Okay, but unfortunately, you're not going to be able to stick to that budget. You're going to miss that budget by, let's say, 5 million. Let's say you're going to overspend by 5 million. Okay, It's now June. You're going into the remaining 6 months of the year. You're sat down with Zach Brown and all the department heads, the finance guy, the marketing guy, the sales guy, the engineers, and you have to make a decision. Okay, you and Zach have to make a decision. You're gonna have to cut costs. Where do you shave 5 million out of the team? And this is a real question. This is actually going to have to happen in the next few weeks. What would you do?
I think it's a tough question, Tone. I mean, it comes back to, I suppose, more the European races when they used to talk about the gin palaces that teams used to turn up with. Now, I think, I may be getting into whim here, but I think the old days of the Red Bull Energy Station have been binned because you never see it anymore. They used to turn up with about 14 semi-trailers with this motorhome on it that they'd assemble on the side of the track with a crane, and it just became the world's biggest motorhome at a circuit. But I think the Red Bull Energy Station's been binned.
You'd cut the motorhomes going to the track straight away. That you'd only bring the race gear, what's needed for the garage, and the main staff. Is that what you're saying?
Have some hospitality stuff as we do. When I've been in the paddock in Melbourne, you walk out of the back of the garage, across the grass, and you go to the hospitality unit, which is just usually a set-up marquee with the team's logo above it. It's a very basic setup. There's minimal. There's a cost involved, but it's bare basics, bare minimum, no frills.
How much is that going to save you? How much is that of your 5 million spend? How much is that going to save you? Do you think?
Yeah,
I don't even think you'll be touching 100 grand of a saving there, to be honest. Not even 100,000. You've still 4.9 million of savings.
I mean, you got to look at the cost of airfares. I mean, my son at the moment's flying to New York for work, and we bought his ticket Sydney to New York return was 2,200 Australian. Now, when I went to the States a couple of years ago, we flew Sydney LA return for under $1,000. Do you start saying to your drivers, look, you might have to fly cattle class and not go first class anymore? And there is rumours that Vettel does fly cattle class and sits with the mechanics towards the back tail end of the plane just to be one of the guys. I mean, that's never confirmed, but do you start saying, instead of buying a $8,000 or $9,000 seat for a trip to London, do you buy a $800 or $900 seat in cattle class and say, right, well, I've saved 8 or 9 grand there? Even if it's for the top 10 people within the team. I mean, there's 100 grand saved just on flights.
Let's throw it out to the floor. I think anyone listening to this podcast right now, okay, get your thinking caps on. Hit us up in the comments. Start a Facebook post in the group, F1 Armchair Experts on Facebook. Strike up a post. Stick in a comment. Let's have this discussion. I would love to know. I'm a businessman myself. Currently managing director. Say no more. But I would love to hear people's thoughts on how you would. And I've given the figure of 5 million, right, of an overspend, and that's not even accounting for the real true rate of inflation. What are you doing?
I just happen to have it here on the desk. It's my gold $sign Monaco necklace. Ironically, I had it here on the desk. You're talking about salary caps. I thought I'd put my
dollar bills. Oh, yeah. But I'd love to hear people's comments and thoughts. How would you shave 5 million? And to be honest, that 5 million of an overspend, I don't even think would cover really the rates, the inflation. Like you could say, inflation was 3 to 4%, usually anywhere between 2 and 5%, and we're currently running at 7-8. Potentially, we could be 13% by the time we get to September. That 5 million is not too far out, I would imagine. But I'd love to know where people think that they're going to get this from. And if you think that the way to do this is for the likes of Mercedes to fix their porpoising problem, and for to get this fixed, Hamilton's just going to have to take a pay cut. He's just going to have to take a pay cut of 5 to 10 million, hand it back to the team, surrender his performance bonuses. To be fair, I don't think he'll be getting money this year anyway. But, is that what needs to happen? Because I'll be honest with you, if you were in Andreas Seidel's seat and you were having to make this decision, or you were in Zach Brown's position where you had to let people go, or Christian Horner, even he alluded to it, that all the new people that he had in the engine, the power unit factory, could you now turn around and tell those people, look, we're very sorry, but we can't. Either everybody's going to have to take a pay cut and the team carries on, or he's going to have to take big chunks out of it somewhere. Like you said, stop the trucks going to the track, the hospitality, cut all the hospitality. It's not about going to sponsors and asking for more money, because you still can't spend that money even if you were to get it, because you're restricted by the budget cap. I would safely say hotels, flights, hospitality would be the first things, the luxury end of things that would have to get cut. But no, I'm interested in hearing what people think.
So the team principals go to the drivers like Chico, Max, Lewis, George, any of the drivers, and say, look, you guys have made enough money over time. Like, you're not on Skid Row just yet. I mean, you got your private jets and all that stuff. Do you say to them, look, things are starting to tighten. You have to pull the purse strings in. You might have to literally drive pro bono for the rest of the season. In the interest of the team survival, in the interest of the survival of the sport, and those fighting for the championship. I mean, it's starting to get a bit pointy at the sharp.
I know where they can make a saving straight away. They could get rid of Danny Rick.
No, I don't agree. Yeah, that's my next talking point. That's my next talking point I want to give. But I think the drivers could effectively drive pro bono for the rest of the season. They don't need the money. Because as I was trying to say, the championships is getting to the pointy end. George Russell is starting to catch up to Leclerc and Chico in terms of the points. And Max is starting to get a good run now in terms of, he's had some good runs and he's bagged some good results in terms of points, but this could be a tight championship. But the question comes back to, if Chico keeps going the way he's going, and if Max just has some colossal failure and, DNF's potentially 3 races during the rest of the season, is Christian going to say, or to the point is Helmut Marko going to allow Chico to fight Max for the championship?
How would we know?
It's a complete unknown. I mean, especially if potentially Russell and Leclerc keep, I mean, Saturday George is now referred to as Mr. Consistency, but if, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, if Ferrari can work out their engine issue and sort Chuck out with an engine that is more reliable and isn't turned up to 11, maybe Leclerc can keep bagging points, and Red Bull maybe turn that pseudo Honda engine up too loud, it may start blowing up. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So the final thing I want to talk about, the final thing I want to discuss is, obviously we saw it in the race, and there was a few comments made in the race chat, is the relationship between Ricciardo and Lando Norris over. I think
Why?
I think it's definitely strained. Because there was discussion between the engineers and the drivers during the course of the race. Look, I think I'm up to speed. I'm up to speed here. I can do this. I can do that. I can get round him. Yes, if Alonso's driving flat out, I can get in front of Lando. But then Norris was told to hold station and not go around Ricciardo in the last couple of laps, even though he did appear on paper to be the quicker driver. He was told to just hold station and stay behind Ricciardo. I think it's the relationship between Ricciardo and Norris is really becoming strained, and I think it's going to come back to there's going to be some massive coming together with those two at some stage, and they're going to take each other out. And I don't know what comes of it, but I just think the relationship between those two drivers is completely strained at this stage.
I would say it's more strained between Ricciardo and the team, but then I wouldn't particularly. I wouldn't think Norris particularly gives a damn, really, whether Ricciardo is there or not. Norris is there for himself. He's a very different entity. I don't think Norris and Ricciardo have that same chemistry that we've seen Ricciardo have with some of his teammates over previous years. I would say that it's between Ricciardo and the team is where it's become strained. Norris is doing a great job. There's no question, even today, that he could have gone quicker. He could have beaten Ricciardo, which makes it all the worse for me, knowing that Norris could have passed him at the end. No, it was a good result for the team. You know, they got P8 and P9, but the fact that the two Ferraris had retired, you could argue that it's P10, it's P11. Now, is it all Ricciardo's fault? Is it any part on the team? Or is it like what I was alluding to earlier, this whole contract between McLaren and Mercedes with the power units? Because Mercedes, I know this is tinfoil hat now, this is conspiracy theory, you can call it what you want, but I know in my bones that this is, I know this exists. There is a clause in that contract somewhere with that power unit exchange, and Mercedes works team have engineers within the McLaren team to manage the power unit, whether it be back in Brackley or whether it's at the track. That I'm not 100% sure on, but there is definitely something in there that prevents McLaren making Mercedes look bad, whether it's in terms of performance on track, top line speed, whatever it is. There is no way in this world that Mercedes would allow, they would not even allow McLaren to beat them, and have both cars in front of both of the Mercedes works teams. And given that Mercedes have an issue with their aero, right? It just doesn't make sense to me why McLaren are where they are, because in testing they had a mighty package. They had mighty speed. We were tipping them back in testing to be somewhere near, very, very close to the front, even potentially mixing in with the Red Bulls and the Ferraris. But they just seem to be stuck there at P9, P10, which is kind of net where they kind of would be if Mercedes have something in their contract to prevent McLaren making them look foolish. So my question here is, okay, we're very heavy in terms of critique on Ricciardo at the moment, but is it justified? I don't know if it's justified. The cars finished the race, within a second of each other today, the two McLarens. It showed that even with a split strategy, virtual safety car, they were able to pretty much cross the line together. Is there any real massive difference in the drivers? Or did that only happen because team orders took place? It's a bit of I suppose I was a bit heavy on Ricciardo up to now. I did say in an earlier podcast back in, I think, April, that I would give Ricciardo until Silverstone, and I will continue to wait until Silverstone, so to give him the benefit of the doubt. But he's got to start showing some results. I think he did a solid race today. I think the strategy probably went against him because he started on the hard tyre, so he was trying to get the life out of those tyres, and then he got lucky under the virtual safety car to switch to the mediums, but the mediums he just couldn't switch those mediums on. The harder tyre was definitely the harder tyre up and down the pit lane. The harder tyre was definitely the better tyre to be on. So hard to blame Ricciardo at the moment, if I'm honest. I think I'll give him another couple of races, but I suppose my question to you is, do you think, has he done enough to win the fans over? I know you made an interview there yesterday saying that he's committed to the team until the end of 2023, and he wasn't going anywhere, and he was gonna try and pull his socks up. Do you think he's done enough after Baku?
Watching the Baku race, I think he has. I think he's potentially tried to keep Norris at bay. Because there was one comment he made to his engineer on the radio was, if this is all Lando's got, give me a chance to get round him and I can really have a fight because I've got some fire in the belly this race. So whether since Monaco he's gone away and found a bit more fire in the belly to deliver, I don't know, but I think he's turned up this weekend with more gusto to want to deliver a better result, and I think he has. At least he's come over with some points, albeit probably the attrition of the Ferraris has helped them. I think maybe we're going to start to see Ricciardo come back again. I can only hope for his sake, especially if he's going to continue through to 2023, staying with the McLaren team for a third season in a row. That's all I can hope. So that's all I want to discuss this week, Tone. We're off to Canada next week. And I want to take one issue up with David Croft, who says that we're going to another street circuit at the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve, which it's not. I've been there, I've driven it. It's not a street circuit. It's a dedicated island that was built for the World Expo.
Wait. Rewind. Hold the fuck up. Back. You've driven the Canadian circuit? Yeah. Or is this the camper van story? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the old story. I just keep rehashing it. You know what I'm like.
For anybody listening, what episode did we tell that story in? We told that story, didn't we, about you driving a camper van around the Canadian circuit? Was it the
around
first
the
one?
Montreal circuit. Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
I think it was the first. If you go back and look for the inaugural podcast, the very first episode, I think we covered this. Yeah, it was very entertaining, that story. So, how did you find what was the porpoising like in the camper van in Canada?
Yeah, driving the E450 Ford wasn't too bad actually. A few of the plates and cutlery, and cups and saucers probably got smashed from me cornering the camper van too fast, but no, I think if David Croft thinks that's a street circuit, he needs his head examined. It's a dedicated circuit. It's a proper race circuit. That's all I can say. Yeah, I'm looking forward to. I love the Canadian race, and it's a dreadful hour for me to wake up. But I haven't missed one for about 30 years. So
you'll be.
I just love it as a race. I'm looking forward to it.
Cup of coffee and a bit of Marmite on toast, Vegemite on toast, you'll be fine.
Yes, Vegemite in the new kitchen we've built, so that'll be good.
Oh yeah, the new kitchen. Looking forward to seeing it. Right, I think we're going to wrap things up there. That was Baku. In terms of the podcast, we'll catch up with you guys next time after Canada. I don't think we're going to do one in between because I think Canada's actually next week. Is it? Is it next week or is it a 1 week break or a 2 week break? Yeah, it's next week. Yeah, there's only
1 week break.
So the guys have to pack up now. They're get all their equipment over to Canada, and then we'll talk after that race. I don't think we're going to do one before unless something comes up in the media that requires our discussion. But like we said earlier, guys, if you've got something that you'd like us to talk about, please leave a comment below this post on the Facebook group. If there's something you don't agree with, again, just leave us a comment, strike up a conversation. We'd love to hear your comments. And going back to the budget cap question, just let us know how you would go about shaving 5 million out of a race team mid-season with this whole inflation problem. Or would you go to the FIA and say, or go to Liberty Media and ask them for a 5 million increase? That's possibly another way of doing it. So Yeah, I think we should wrap up there. Have you any last final words, Durko?
Not from me, T. Thanks for your input tonight. It's always good to chat, as usual, after a race, and we take loggerheads with the big issues.
We've managed to do it without any technical issues this time. We've managed to do it all in one recording. So yeah, that's a
And
good
I'm back
sign.
at the desk.
We're both back at the desk. We did it last week in our cars, on our phones. So yeah, it wasn't. So yeah, apologies for if you're listening to the last version of the podcast. Anyway, it's a goodbye from me.
And it's a good night from him.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.
See you, T. Bye, everyone.